So this question says, a triangle has sides of length 2.7a minus 1.2b yards, 1.54b minus 2.1c yards, and a minus 1.9c yards. Write an expression that represents the perimeter in yards of the triangle. This looks incredibly scary because I'm sure the last time you guys had a triangle problem, the sides were just numbers. So for example, it might have looked something a lot more like this. So you would have a triangle with one side here, and one side here. And you'd have these pretty neat numbers. You'd have a number like 3 here, and 4 here, and 5 here. And if you're looking for the perimeter, because that's what we're looking for in this problem, if you're looking for the perimeter, all you'd have to do is just add all the sides, because the perimeter is the sum of all sides, aka you get it by adding all the sides. But the issue here is that our sides look nothing like numbers. So if we look for the perimeter for this little triangle here, we'll have 3 plus 4 plus 5. And 3 plus 4 is 7, and 7 plus 5 is 12, and your perimeter would be 12, and life would be good. This isn't like that at all. So here's how we solve a problem like this. The idea is the same. We still have a triangle, and that triangle still has 3 sides, and each side is represented not by a number like 3, 4, or 5, but instead is represented by an algebraic expression. So let's just slow it down and take a look at each side. All right, so let's put a box around each of the sides to organize this. So I'm going to put a rectangle around this expression here, around this expression here, and around this expression right here. And then I'm going to label exactly what it is. So this here is the first side. This is our second side. And this here is our third side. So if we use this triangle here, I'll just erase all the other parts from our previous example. So if we had this triangle here, the first side would be 2.7a minus 1.2b. So I'll write that in. So we'll say this side is our first side, and we'll make this 2.7a minus 1.2b. That's this side of the triangle right here. So we're done with that. Let's go to the second side, 1.54b minus 2.1c. I'll write that here. So this will be 1.54b, not the prettiest thing, but it'll do. 1.54b minus 2.1c. And that's our second side. And now we'll write in our third side, which is a minus 1.9c. Remember, this is our second side here. That's this side. And our third side is this side over here, which is a minus 1.9c. So a minus 1.9c. That expression represents this third side of the triangle over here. And we're still doing the same thing. We're still looking for the perimeter, which means we have to add all the sides. Now, instead of having numbers, we have algebraic expressions, and these algebraic expressions have terms in them. And what we can do is we can find the like terms and combine those terms. That we can add, and then we get it into its simplest form. So let's do that. The first thing I want to do is I would just want to take this entire expression, each of these expressions, and make one really long expression. Let's do that over here. So I'm going to write 2.7a minus 1.2b plus, that's the first side, plus this side here, which is 1.54b minus 2.1c, and then plus, I don't know what happened there. Let's go back here. Plus a minus 1.9c. Let me move that over here. I'm actually going to shift everything over. Okay, actually, you know what? Let's just focus on the expression. Let me move all this stuff up. Okay. I think that should be good. All right, so we know we have to add all the sides. Let's take this expression here, this algebraic expression, and let's now break it up. And just before we go into that part, I want to recap exactly what the heck all this means. Remember, this whole thing represents our perimeter because we're just adding all the sides. Remember that one side here is 2.7a minus 1.2b. That's this part of the expression, okay? The 1.54b minus 2.1c, that's this part of the expression, and that represents the second side of the triangle. And this side here, a minus 1.9c, represents the third side of the triangle. All right? I want to make sure we understand that before we proceed, because now we're not going to look at the geometry. Now we'll just focus back on the algebra. So let's zoom into this expression. Okay, so here I have my entire expression to represent the perimeter of the triangle. This first part here represents the first side of the triangle. We're adding it to the length of the second side of the triangle, which is this part of the expression here. And then we're also adding the third side of the triangle, which is represented by this expression right here. So now what we'll do is we'll box our entire expression. All right, a rectangle around everything. And then we're going to break it up into individual terms, separate terms. So let's do that. So our first term is positive 2.7a. We'll drop a line here. Our next term is negative 1.2b. So we'll drop a line here. Our next term starts here and ends before the next plus or minus sign, which is right here. So that means our next term is positive 1.54b. Our next term starts here at negative 2.1c and stops right before the plus sign. And then our next term starts here. And by the way, remember, whenever you have a variable by itself, you can always put the coefficient 1 in front of it. So that is positive 1a. This term will end before the minus sign. Drop that here. And there we have it. Our final term is negative 1.9c. And then what I'll do is I'll look at the entire expression. There are a lot of terms, yes, but there's only 3 letters here, 3 different variables. We've got a's, b's, and c's. I don't see any constants. So since I only have those 3 things, I'm going to set up a term table. And in that term table, I'll have 3 separate columns. So let's set up our term table. And our term table is going to have 3 separate columns. So let's create them. And our 3 columns are going to be for the following. One is going to be for our A terms, one's going to be for our B terms, and one's going to be for our C terms. So I have the top of the table here, and that is where I will put everything that we are going to separate it into. So we're going to have an A column, a B column, and a C column. So let's start with the first term, positive 2.7a. That is an A term, so it will go in the A column. So I will cross it off here and put it here. Positive 2.7a. Next term, negative 1.2b. That will go in the B column. I'll put negative 1.2b. We're done with that term. I'll then go to positive 1.54b. That's my next term. That's another B term, so that also goes in the B column. I will cross it off here, and I will put positive 1.54b. The next term is negative 2.1c, so I'll cross that off here, and I'll put it in the C column because it's a C term. Negative 2.1c. I'll go to my next term, positive 1a, cross it off here, and put it in the A column, so positive 1a. And then I've got my last term, which is negative 1.9c. That is a C term, so it will go in the C column, and I'll put it right here, negative 1.9c. And I'll cross it off here, and I'm done sorting each term of my expression. When you look at it all together here in one straight row, it looks really daunting and terrible, and you just want to like stop and give up. But when you have it separated like this, it's not that bad because we can look at each separate column to find our final answer. So let's start with the A column. We've got positive 2.7a plus positive 1a. And remember, you're only adding the coefficients, and that just means you're adding the number in front. So we've got positive 2.7 plus positive 1, and that will give us positive, again, we're adding 2.7, positive 2.7, plus positive 1 in the calculator, okay? And that's going to give us positive 3.7a. So we're done with the A column. Let's go to the B column. We've got negative 1.2b plus 1.54b. So in the calculator, we'll enter negative 1.2 plus positive 1.54, and that will give us positive 0.34b. And please do not forget the variable. I see a lot of scholars who just look at the coefficients and they forget that they're combining terms with a variable in them. Please don't forget to bring your variable down if you need to. And the next column is C, negative 2.1. In the calculator, we'll enter negative 2.1 plus negative 1.9, and that would give us negative 4. So this term here would be negative 4c. So the first term is 3.7a, then the second term is positive 0.34b, and the third term is negative 4c. Now that's the separate terms. When you read the entire expression from left to right, you don't say positive and negative, you say plus or minus. So our final answer for this expression is 3.7a plus 0.34b minus 4c. And this is the expression that represents the perimeter of that triangle.